Hello, this is Cotton Stoops and welcome back to another Loomian Legacy HTUC video. In today's HTUC video, if you didn't look at the title, we're of course going to be covering the Loomian that probably got one of the biggest buffs in Atlantean City Part 1, and that of course is Deludrix. So without further ado, let's get along with the video. So, in order to know how to use Deludrix, we must ask the question, what role does Deludrix play? Well, thankfully, its base stat actually does this pretty well. So, one thing to know about Deludrix is it's not going to be taking a lot of hits. Its HP and defenses are pretty low, and fun fact, it may not be fun, but Deludrix's base stats and HP is one of the lowest in the game in terms of offensive Loomians. While it isn't the lowest, it is still pretty low, so yeah, keep in mind that. However, it does have a good energy stat because it can reach the benchmark of 250. This of course is pretty good because a lot of the high base power moves are 50 costing energy moves, so that of course is really great for Deludrix, and in my opinion, the best selling move for Deludrix are its attacking stats and speed. Its speed is 94, and you might think that's not pretty great because there are a lot of Loomians in that speed tier, but fun fact, a lot of those are not being used a lot, so Deludrix can outspeed those stuff or potentially have a lot more fun with the speed tiers below it. However, its range attack stat is really great. In my opinion, it's the best thing about Deludrix because 122, it can compete in damage in terms of raw power with Valkyrie, Kazune, Mutun, Lyricat, so on and so on. So this means that Deludrix is a pretty fast Loomian and a pretty strong attacker. Not to mention it does have 109 melee attack, so that thing is really great. You could potentially run mix sets with this, but I would rather stick with the range attack version. So, what role can Deludrix play? Well, this is, in my opinion, pretty easy to answer. It can be strong but frail, so you're gonna have to run a lot of speed and range attack in it. And you have to use pivots because, you know, Deludrix is not going to be having a fun time if it's going to be constantly switching in, taking raw, powerful damage, so that's not great. And it can be a really good revenge killer because Deludrix is pretty fast and it's pretty strong, so with its coverage, which I'll be talking about later, will be really great for Deludrix. So, with that out of the way, I'll be telling you what Deludrix can resist or not resist if you're going to be wanting to switch in. Deludrix's typing is pretty good because it's water and bug. You are weak to electric, air, brawler, toxic. While these aren't really the best weaknesses to have, it isn't the worst, okay? Elephage, Joltooth, Zulong, Metatone are all prominent electric types, as well as Stratosaur and Zeppelin being really common air types. And Brawler and Toxic, you know, those are pretty strong typings because you got Bar Blast and Toxic, and basically every Brawler type in the game for Brawler types, so it's not going to be having fun against those. However, it does have good resistances to Fire, Water, Dark, Bug, Earth, and Metal. You can switch in on stuff like Tyrex for their Earth and Metal resist, Dark types like Vesperatu, and mainly only Vesperatu, but yeah. Water types like Barblast and Luminami, it's pretty good switch-ins for that. And Fire, it's not really that common, but I guess you can try and switch in on Chartiki. So yeah, while these aren't the best resistances to have, these are definitely good resistances in my opinion for the metagame. So yeah. However, I will be talking about Deludrix's set in the next slide, so be ready for that. Deludrix's set will of course be Isaac Newby's set because he loves Deludrix and frankly he knows a lot about it. Aqua Body is your ability of choice because, you know, able to resist fire a lot more is of course any good on any Loomian because, you know, fire is a strong offensive typing. While it isn't as common as before, Aqua Body is still a good ability to run on Deludrix. However, Shakedown is also a pretty good ability to run on Deludrix as well, because knowing what item the opponent is running is really valuable because you do not want to get one-shotted or two-shotted by any potential shell users or get outsped by a boots user, so that of course is really great. The moves of choice will be Douse, Sphere Blast, or Thunderstrike. You will you'll be running these three moves because Douse and Ferroblast are your stabs, and Thunderstrike are for water types and metal types. Clay Slap or Jetstream can be either one. Clay Slap is good for Venilin, and Jetstream is good for bug types like Swolder and Terraclaw. So pick your poison. In my opinion, I would pick Jetstream as of right now. Although since Swolder might be going down to UU in a couple of weeks, Clay Slap might be the better choice. The personality of choice is pretty good because very smart, foolish, of course, really great personalities for Deludrix. Very smart is for Deludrix to hit as hard as possible, and tender / frail, it can be optional because frail, if you're not running Clay Slap, or run that. If you're running Clay Slap, run tender. You can switch out some defenses or defensive personalities. It doesn't really matter as long as you're running very smart. The item of choice will be Clutch Plushie or Specialty Boots. Specialty Boots is really great on Deludrix because Deludrix is a revenge killer, and outspeeding the wall or the sweeper in front of you is obviously a good trait. Not to mention that Specialty Boots will help Deludrix clean faster because Deludrix outspeeds everything, and generally cleaning won't need more than one move, so Deludrix can use that. However, Clutch Plushie is for people who are new to PvP, or rather new to Deludrix, because Specialty Boots is hard to pull off, and while its payoffs are amazing, Clutch Plushie in my opinion is more consistent than Specialty Boots. However, the TPs you'll be running are 84 energy, which is for 250 energy in level 50 battles, 16 melee attack or 16 HP, 200 range attack and 200 speed. Maxing out your speed and range attack is essential on Deludrix for doing as much damage as possible, as well as hitting a lot of things possible with your moves. You can run 16 melee attack if you are not running frail, but if you are running frail, then put that 16 TPs into HP. And that's basically it. And it will be very useful for you to know how you can deal with those counters or how to avoid them as much as possible. So let's get along with that section. Deludrix's counters is far in between. I mean, the best answer is Taoshinu, because Taoshinu is bulky enough to survive Clay Slaps and is bulky enough to survive Deludrix's range attack attacks. Not to mention that Taoshinu is pretty bulky, so you're gonna be not winning against this no matter what. Taoshinu will always outlast you, so that's a hard counter for Deludrix. However, two other Loomians are Swolder and Venilin. While these guys aren't really the best, as good as Taoshinu, these guys are still really worth your while. For Venilin, at least, Venilin is good because Deludrixes aren't really running Clay Slap right now, so Deludrix cannot beat Venilin, and Swolders are good, but they're not really as great as Venilin because it isn't as range bulky as Venilin, and of course it is weak to Jetstream. So its other checks are Vesperatu and Ursul, as well as every other priority move user, because anything that can outspeed or rather hit this thing with priority like Vesperatu or Ursul, it is going to get hit pretty hard. This is why we have the Clutch Plushie on. Offensive teammates for Deludrix are stuff like C.B.O and Mutagun. While Mutagun isn't, the best because Mutagun will just take the whole show, C.B.O is pretty good because having another water type can be good for Deludrix, and as well as C.B.O being able to break down Taoshinu, which is probably going to be most people's answers for Deludrix. Other offensive teammates are Snegoop and Himber. Himber is pretty good because you can switch in on Venilin and Swolder, so you can have at that. Snegoop is pretty good for switching in against Swolder. It's not really that great against Venilin though, and it can try to beat Taoshinu, but it's not going to be going that well. Himber can do well against Taoshinu, but Taoshinu is just too bulky for Himber. Some defensive teammates for Deludrix are obviously Ileguana and Luminami. These guys are really good because pivots in general are really great. Not to mention that Ileguana is an electric type, so it can share some resistances between Deludrix, so it can resist the stuff that it hates. For example, electric is a really good big one. And yeah, however, Luminami is not really that great anymore. I would definitely consider running Iliguana over Luminami, but if you are running low on pivots or you just are too lazy to get a lightning rod one, I would just run Luminami. Some down bad stuff, or rather some Lumians that you do beat, are Thunderstrike users that, or rather Thunderstrike users that will die, Illuminami, Valkyrie, and Stratosaur. These are really good stuff to use our Thunderstrike on. Or Ferroblast, Malmerk, and Chartiki. Obviously, these are great for those stuff. Not to mention that Malmerk is rising in the ranks right now because Driving Force, and it is a premier counter to Valkyrie. So yeah, Douse stuff are Setimars, Tyrex, and Iliguana. While these guys can live a one hit from Deludrix, they can't do enough damage back unless you're Iliguana, so that of course is something to take note of. So that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed and found this video informational, so like the video and subscribe if you're into that, I guess. And of course, remember to use Deludrix as much as you can, because you might as well use this monster before it gets nerfed by some other outside force, aka Jamie. And without further ado, I'll end the video right here. Good night, or good day, or good afternoon, wherever you are. And remember one thing, Zulong is still a dumpster fire.